bienvenue, hello and welcome. Hello, I am back with a new video for this week, and this week we are talking about a gothic classic. We are talking, of course, about the granddaddy of all the vampire films, Dracula. Yes, we are talking about Dracula, the granddaddy of all the vampire films and all the vampire novels. He is the big, most important one. And I know it is not Halloween, but what does it matter? Any time is a good time for Dracula. Besides, Halloween is in spring. That is not really very creepy. Now it is the middle of winter and it's so spooky. So we do Dracula. May. Before we do that, I want to remind everybody that if they wish to support us, that we have a shop. No Patreon, no sponsor, no advertising. We have a shop. And in our shop, we have shirts. Like this, nice shirts. We have templates that will help with your writing. We have writing services that you can book and work with somebody one-on-one. We have this book, which is historical fiction set in Katoomba during my period, the First World War. We have this book, which is poetry and verse. We have this book, which is set in rural Australia in the 1960s. We have this book to help you with your learnings to write your own novel. And finally, we have this book, which is just out, brand new science fiction comedy. You should totally get it. There are 3 in the series. This is the first. The 3 will be out over time, but get this one first and read it and enjoy it because it is very funny. Now, that is all our shop things out of the way. And so now we start with the very, very spooky novel, which is Dracula. Dracula is by Bram Stoker, who is Irish. You know, we are bending our rules a little in terms of our period. When we go outside of the English, we are not doing 19th century English. They are repressed and boring. But this book is 1897, so it's close enough, and it is anyway talking about modernity. Which is, I look at modernist novels, so therefore we are looking at modernity and anxiety and masculinity and sexuality. It is all very, very modern. Very, very modern in this old vampire story. And everybody has seen, even if you have not read Dracula, everybody has seen it. Everybody has seen it in one version or another. Everybody has seen it, whether you have seen Murnau's Nosferatu, which is like Dracula with all the names changed because they sued him. But so he just changed all the names, and that has the most iconic and terrifying looking Dracula that you could ever imagine. Also, he at that time is called Count Orlok, but we all know he is Dracula. He is truly monstrous. Is that Dracula? If you could look at the 1930s with Bela Lugosi, the dress suit Dracula, the Dracula that a lot of other Draculas are based on, especially parody versions. So like the Hotel Transylvania or the Count in Sesame Street are all after Bela Lugosi Dracula. Or you know Dracula, your Dracula might be Christopher Lee, one of the great Draculas, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are one of the great famous, even though Christopher Lee got tired of playing Dracula after a while. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are the great Dracula for many people. If you are from my generation, if you are my age, then your great Dracula is probably Gary Oldman in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which is where I encountered Dracula when I was 15. And I read Dracula at 15 because every 15-year-old gets into vampires, and unfortunately we have not had a good Dracula since Gary Oldman. They're just not a really great Dracula. We have some good vampires, but not a great Dracula. But we have a look at the book. The book of Dracula is very interesting. It is an epistolatory novel, which is a break from very much how the 19th century with the realist novel. This is arcing back to the 18th century when the epistolatory novel was much more popular. In the 19th century, the realism and the omniscient narrator generally take place, and the idea of a single unified worldview is dominant, especially in English literature, especially in men's English literature. So to go back and use a older style like the epistolatory and the Gothic is quite radical, which is why I would say that this is if not a modernist novel, is probably pretty close to being a proto-modernist novel. It is doing some things that the 19th century were not doing. So in that way, it is very interesting. We have multiple narrators telling this from different perspectives. We have Jonathan Harker. We have Mina Murray, or Mina Harker, because she get married in the book. And we have Dr. Stewart. I think those are the primary, I think we have a couple of letters between Lucy and Mina. Lucy's diary is mentioned once, but the dominant narrators, there is cutting from newspaper, but the dominant narrators are Jonathan Harker, Mina Murray Harker, and Dr. Stewart. So this is very important in terms of who is not narrated. That is important. Who is not telling their perspective, and obviously, for given that his name is on the front, the very glaringly that Dracula has no perspective in the book. So there is no perspective from Dracula, but there is also no perspective from other important characters, such as Lord Arthur Holman or Quincy Morris. And I will discuss this because I think that this is important in terms of how we are meant to see the anxieties and neuroses within the book. The other big character who does not have a voice in terms of a narrative voice is Dr. Van Helsing. So neither does Dr. Van Helsing, the vampire hunter. We all know the Dr. Van Helsing, vampire hunter. And in my head, I have Anthony Hopkins. So because if my Dracula is Gary Oldman, then my Van Helsing is Anthony Hopkins. So, talking about the book, what is the book about? Well, it is As I said, this is a book that is arcing backwards to the 18th century and the Gothic tradition, which has more or less disappeared or gone undergroundish or disappeared into more pulpy genre. So you have something like Sweeney Todd comes up in the Penny Dreadfuls. So the Gothic is still there, but it is in the Penny Dreadfuls, in the really, really, really cheap, almost comic book type book stories. You do have the Gothic comes up. The Gothic comes up in the 19th century in the short story of Edgar Allan Poe. It comes up in I think Wilkie Collins. I do not know Wilkie Collins very well, but I think that he uses Gothic. Dracula is a major novel at the end of the 19th century that uses the Gothic in a very overt manner. These are not just creepy stories. This is Gothic story. It has all those Gothic tropes, like the damsel in distress and the creepy foreigners and the modern man. And the modern man is probably where we should start talking about this in terms of Dracula, parce que the modern man is Jonathan Harker. And Jonathan Harker is Wet Blanket. He is so Wet Blanket. He is so, how should I say? He is so soft. And that is sort of the all anxiety that sits behind Dracula. We see the modernity of Jonathan Harker. Jonathan Harker is writing his journal in shorthand. He is interested in maps, in mapping the world, in train timetables, in getting his girlfriend, Mina, to learn the typewriter to help him. He is a modern man with modern conveniences. And when faced with the man like Count Dracula, when he goes into the East, where all his modernity and all his systematizing of the world falls apart, because this is a world of fantasy, of tradition, of many knights and savagery and battle and gypsies and all sorts of things that are romantic and Gothic and medieval and talk back to a world of chivalry and warfare. Suddenly, Jonathan Harker himself imagines himself as not as a knight in this world of Dracula, but as the lady sitting at home writing letters to her knight who is off fighting. This is when he has time by himself, because Dracula obviously is asleep during the day. So there is this says that in this world of Transylvania, and in the world of the other, and this does not matter if it is the world of Transylvania, if this is the world of Africa, if this is the world of the Middle East, if this is the world of the colonies, that the European, the Western European, not the Eastern European, the Western European man is emasculated by the virile masculinity of this world. It is a neurosis and a paranoia. And we see this in terms of what it is that Dracula does. Dracula comes to the West. He comes to the West, and what does he do? He steals their women. He steals their women. He steals Lucy. Lucy is primed to be stolen because Lucy is not entirely. There is a suggestion that she is too sensual, that she is too eager to be married and for the wedding night. shall we say? That she is the one with the multiple suitors, including a cowboy from America and a Lord Arthur Homewood. Lord Arthur Homewood is also interesting because he is not one of the modern men. He is also a throwback, but he is an emasculated throwback. He is not enough of a man to allow Lucy to resist this allure, the allure of the exotic Dracula. And so Lucy get beaten and die and turn because Lucy is so sensual. Lucy is the first of the people to be turned into vampire. The other, so on one hand, you have the modern man of technology, of systematizing, or colonization in Jonathan Harker. And then on the other hand, in your other narrator, you have Dr. Stewart, who is a man of science, who is the psychiatrist. He runs the mental institute where Renfield is. He is the one who brings he's the one who brings Van Helsing into this. He brings, man of science brings man of spookiness into this world. So this is why Van Helsing does not have. Van Helsing also steps from that past world, that other world, because he knows about the vampire. He is not fully the modern man. So again, he does not get a narrative position. Also, when you think of it, when Jonathan Harker, none of these modern men are truly a match for the seductive quality of the other, because Jonathan Harker is imprisoned in the castle like Madame by Dracula, and then he is further emasculated by the sensuality, the sexuality of Dracula's three brides, who, because he is incapable of resisting them, they keep him prisoner and make it very hard for him to leave, because they sap his blood. Yes. There is a lot in which blood stands in for something else in this book. So it is also blood. You can read it in terms of sexually transmitted disease. You can also read it in terms of other sexual ideas. So, very interestingly, Mina is probably one of the, because Mina is the person who although is attacked by Dracula, is resist him. She is sort of the perfect little Victorian creature, is kind of a little bit of a wet blanket, kind of the female version of Jonathan Harker. The more interesting person, I think, if we are looking at this in terms of a book of others, is actually Quincy Morris. Quincy Morris is the only one of the men who die. So Lucy died because Lucy is there to show us, oh, this is what happens if you have a sensual woman. You should be little mercy creature like Mina. But Quincy Morris is also an other, and also a threat to the emasculated Western European man. He is the cowboy from America. And although there is a certain degree of, oh yes, you can come into our society, there is also the threat from Quincy Morris, which is why, along with Dracula, who is the very big other, the very big threat, There is also a threat from someone like Quincy. Quincy coming to England to take our women again. And Quincy is clearly the big, virile, and quite a threat to the men of England. He is a considerable threat in terms of being chosen by Lucy, in terms of compared to Arthur and Dr. Stewart. May he play by the rules. He is a suitor, not a seducer. Dracula is seduction. Is a seducer, not a suitor. So Quincy Morris is not excluded because he played by the rules, but he could very easily be the other. There is nothing in Quincy Morris that says he is not a potential other, which is why I think that is why he is killed at the end of the book with Dracula. It is made out to be tragedy, but I think that they got rid of potential, sexy cowboy man. So, finally, the book also examines what is the limits of rationality, because by the end of the book, they would tabulate all their stuff, and what proof do they have? All they don't have proof that they did is that they stalked, tormented, and murdered an aristocrat from Transylvania. There is absolutely no proof in anything that they have that he was vampire, which is very important because it is what is your level of proof? Even they will say. I mean, if anybody found out what they did, they will be prosecuted for killing an aristocrat of a foreign nation. I mean, very serious what they did. What they did. So it is a fantasy. It is a gothic novel. I think that perhaps you could retell the story as these paranoid, emasculated men who stalk and kill a visiting aristocrat. That could be a very different sort of way of looking at Dracula. It would change the monster and the horrific quite significantly. Perhaps that would be a nice thing for somebody to try out. Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed Dracula. If you like vampires and you have never read Dracula, read Dracula. If you have never read Dracula, or you don't know anything about vampires, start with Dracula. It is the oldest, it is the classic, it is the best. Read Dracula, and then you won't go with any more stupid, sparkly, vegetarian vampires. And then I will come and see you again. So I will come and see you again later. Until then, au revoir. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.